Welcome in, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely. Always ready to get into it.
Today, we're looking into all the legal troubles for Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Definitely a lot more than we usually cover. There's a YouTube video from the Law and Crime Network that really kicks things off, and then a ton of news coverage because this has been a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And the big takeaway, Diddy's facing a mountain of lawsuits.
A mountain's right. Most are alleging sexual assault.
And it's just, well, it raises a lot of questions about power and fame.
Yeah, how the legal system works, too.
Right, exactly.
It's wild just how many lawsuits have been filed. Hundreds, potentially.
It's not like just one or two accusations.
Right, no. It's been building for years.
Okay, so to really get into this, we have to rewind a bit. So back in September, Diddy was arrested.
Some serious federal charges.
Sex trafficking.
Racketeering, conspiracy.
Yeah, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
And that racketeering conspiracy, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, it essentially means being part of a group that does a whole lot of illegal stuff.
Okay, so organized crime, basically.
Yeah, you got it.
So right now, Diddy's in federal detention, waiting for trial in May. He says he's not guilty of all these charges.
Of course.
But in the meantime, since the arrest, there have already been about 20 civil lawsuits filed.
And that attorney, Tony Busby.
Right, the one who's handling a lot of these cases.
He's saying this is only the start, like the tip of the iceberg.
He's claiming he's gotten, get this, over 3,000 calls from possible victims.
Wow. He thinks he could file 100, maybe even 150 more suits?
That many?
It's insane. So do you think, even if none of this is proven, all these claims could affect what people think?
I mean, it has to, right?
Probably.
We're talking about accusations from men and women.
And some saying they were underage at the time?
That's right.
That adds a whole other level of seriousness to this. If that's true, it could mean way worse consequences for Diddy.
Legally, for sure. And, we do have to say that Diddy's lawyers are saying this is all a big publicity stunt by Busby.
And they're denying everything.
Everything. But do you think there could be something else going on here? Like, for Busby, could this be more than just winning the cases?
Strategically? Maybe. Like maybe he's trying to pressure Diddy with so many suits, even if some aren't that strong.
Yeah, like to make it seem like there was a lot of wrongdoing.
Exactly. Makes you think. So we've got these serious accusations going back decades from all kinds of people. But there's this other side to the story, almost like a case within a case.
It's wild, right?
Busby and JayZ.
So an anonymous celebrity, turns out it was JayZ, accused Busby of extortion.
Which just adds another layer of crazy to all of this.
Oh, yeah. Busby's denying it all, of course.
And he's going after JayZ's law firm, saying they were trying to dig up dirt on him. It's like something out of a movie.
I know, right? Makes you wonder about everyone's motivations.
For sure. Are there any personal grudges going on? Is this about more than just helping the alleged victims? It makes you think.
Okay, so where does JayZ actually fit into the lawsuits against Diddy? It's not just about the fight with Busby, right?
Right. So Busby filed this updated complaint, specifically naming JayZ, saying he was also involved in the rape of a 13-year-old, along with Diddy, back in 2000.
Whoa, that is serious.
Very serious.
This was supposed to have happened at the Intercontinental Hotel in Times Square, and there's something in the reports about a man and woman filming the whole thing.
We're talking about, potentially, someone taking advantage of their power, their position, and exploiting a young person. If that's true, it makes you wonder, how could this happen? And what, if anything, was there to protect potential victims?
And obviously JayZ's denying it all completely.
Calling it heinous. Saying Busby's just an opportunist.
Right, that he's chasing fame, trying to get rich off these shocking claims. So we've got Diddy fighting these lawsuits, this public back and forth between his lawyer and JayZ, and it's just so messy. Accusations flying all over the place.
Totally. And to add even more to all this, 3 other men have now filed lawsuits against Diddy.
Okay, so it's not just Busby behind all these cases.
Right, no. These new ones allege drugging and rape.
Really?
Yeah, and a different attorney is handling them, Thomas Jara.
So do you think this means there could be a pattern here? Or is there something else going on, maybe?
Hard to say for sure. I mean, we need to know more about each case. But the fact that multiple lawyers are involved,
It does make it seem more believable.
it does suggest that there might be a lot of people who feel they have real claims against Combs.
That's true. But it also brings up a bigger question about the whole legal system. Let's say, what if some of these lawsuits, maybe a lot of them, are exaggerated or even completely made up?
What do you think that would do to how we see these kinds of accusations in the future?
That's a good point. Because even if they're proven false, those kinds of accusations can scare people.
Definitely. Real victims might not want to come forward.
Exactly. They might not think anyone will believe them.
It's a tough situation all around. You want people to feel safe speaking out, but also protect the rights of anyone accused.
You have to find that balance.
For sure. And with someone like Diddy, someone so famous, it's even harder.
Yeah, all the media, the public watching everything.
It's got to be stressful for everyone involved, both the accusers and the accused.
We've talked about how many accusations there are, but thinking about the legal side, does the number of lawsuits matter? Even if Diddy wins them all, does it change anything?
Oh, it definitely matters. Even if he's found not guilty in a criminal trial, all these accusations can really hurt his reputation.
And his career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tough to come back from that, even if you're cleared legally.
So are these civil cases connected to the federal charges at all? Yeah, I mean, could these other accusations affect the criminal trial, even if they're not directly part of it?
They could, yeah. There's this thing called prior bad acts.
Okay, what's that?
Prosecutors might use these accusations, even if they're not about the specific charges, to show a pattern of behavior.
So even if the jury is supposed to only focus on the main charges, hearing about all this other stuff?
It can make it hard for them to be totally unbiased.
That makes sense.
That's the tricky thing with famous people in these big cases. Jurors are regular people. They see the news, they hear things.
They can't just forget everything they've heard.
Right. The judge will tell them to only think about what's presented in court. But it's impossible to completely block out everything else.
Yeah, that's tough. It also makes you think about the role of the lawyers.
Yeah.
You've got Busby representing all these accusers, then Diddy's team fighting hard to defend him.
High stakes for everyone.
Definitely. And with those high stakes comes all that media attention, everyone watching.
Right. It's a balancing act. Lawyers have to do their best for their clients, but also follow the rules.
And we can't forget, all this legal stuff, it involves real people.
Of course. Their lives have been completely changed by this.
Sexual assault is serious.
Absolutely. And we had to approach these accusations carefully. Be sensitive, respectful to everyone involved.
I agree. We need to recognize how hard it is for victims to come forward, especially when they're accusing someone powerful.
Exactly. And we can't forget how traumatic these experiences are, how they can affect people for a long time.
This whole thing makes you think about power, fame, and whether people are really held accountable. Do celebrities get treated differently? Do they have a different set of rules?
Look at bigger questions. They go beyond just this one case. It's about how our whole society treats rich and powerful people. Does everyone really get treated equally by the law?
That's a big one. It definitely makes you realize that justice isn't always simple.
Right.
It can be messy, there can be different stories, and people's opinions always play a part.
Exactly. And then in a case like this, with so many accusations, different lawyers, and all these famous people involved.
It just gets more complicated.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive. All the accusations against Diddy, the legal fights, and what it all means for the rest of us. But the criminal trial in May, that's still up in the air.
That's the big one. That trial could change everything for the civil lawsuits, too.
So let's talk about that. What could happen at the criminal trial? And how would it affect the other cases?
Well, if Diddy's found guilty, that would be huge.
I bet.
It would really hurt his defense in the civil cases.
How so?
Because a criminal conviction carries a lot of weight. Legally, of course, but also just in how people see things.
Makes sense.
It might encourage other alleged victims to come forward. And it would be much harder for Diddy to deny those new claims.
So even if the civil cases are about different things, if he's found guilty in the criminal trial,
It could set off a chain reaction.
making it more likely he'll lose those other cases too.
Exactly. And it's not just about the legal stuff. A conviction could ruin his reputation, his whole career, no matter what happens with the lawsuits.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what if he's found not guilty in the criminal trial? Does that mean he's automatically cleared in the civil cases?
Not really. Because remember, the rules are different for civil and criminal cases. In a criminal trial, the prosecution has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a very high bar. But in a civil case,
It's not as strict.
right, the plaintiff just needs to show that their case is more likely than not. It's called a preponderance of the evidence.
So even if the jury in the criminal trial doesn't think there's enough evidence to convict Diddy, a different jury, looking at the same stuff.
They could still decide he's responsible in a civil case.
Wow.
And don't forget, even if he's found not guilty in the criminal trial, all those accusations are still out there. Everyone's heard them. His reputation might already be hurt, no matter what happens legally.
That's true. It really shows how complicated this all is.
It does, doesn't it?
The whole legal system, especially with someone famous with these kinds of serious allegations.
It's tough. And public perception can make things even harder.
Right. I mean, we've seen how social media and the news can just blow things up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens even before we know all the facts.
Exactly. In this case, with so many accusations, so much attention.
It's hard to imagine a jury not being affected by what they've seen and heard outside the courtroom.
So how do you even make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, that's why choosing the jury is so important in these kinds of cases.
Yeah.
The lawyers on both sides, they're going to try to pick jurors who can put aside everything they've heard and just focus on the evidence presented in court.
That seems really hard
Oh, it is.
to block out all that noise.
Absolutely. But that's the goal. And our whole legal system is based on this idea of a fair trial. It's about making sure everyone gets a fair chance, no matter how rich or famous they are.
That's good. So as we wrap this up, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as this case keeps moving forward?
I think the most important thing is this. Even though this involves a celebrity, what's happening here, these are issues that affect all of us.
It's about power.
About who's held responsible.
And the challenges that victims of sexual assault face.
Right. It shows us that the legal system is complicated. It doesn't always have clear answers.
Sometimes it's messy.
Exactly. This whole thing will probably continue playing out in the courts and in the public eye for a while.
So how should people be following this?
Think critically about what you're reading and hearing. Don't just take everything at face value. Consider all sides.
And form your own opinion.
Yes, an informed opinion.
That's what this deep dive has been all about.
Not just giving you the facts, but helping you understand them.
Right. So you can have those important conversations. So, as all this plays out, remember that behind all the headlines and the legal stuff are real people whose lives have been changed by all of this.
These conversations matter, even if they're difficult. They're how we make things better.
Make society more fair.
Exactly.
And that's the end of our deep dive into the Sean Diddy Combs legal situation.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive that will hopefully make you think and learn something new. Until then, stay curious. It really shows how public opinion can play such a huge role in these cases, especially when it's someone famous.
Yeah, definitely.
It makes you wonder, how can you even have a fair trial when everyone already has an opinion?
That's the thing. Social media, the news, it all moves so fast now.
It does.
Things get amplified, opinions get formed, and sometimes it happens before we even know all the facts.
And with a case like this, so many accusations, so much media coverage.
It's tough to imagine a jury being completely unaffected by all that.
So how do you make sure the jury isn't biased?
Well, choosing the jury is super important.
I bet.
The lawyers on both sides, they're going to try to find people who can set us up of everything they've heard.
Just focus on what's presented in court.
Exactly.
But that's got to be hard, right? To completely ignore everything you've seen and heard before.
Oh, it is. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
But that's the ideal. That's what our legal system is built on. The idea of a fair trial.
It makes sense.
It's about making sure everyone gets a fair chance. Doesn't matter how rich or famous they are.
That's good. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as this all moves forward?
I think the most important thing is that even though this case is about a celebrity, the issues here, they affect everyone.
They do.
We're talking about power, accountability, the things that victims of sexual assault go through.
Yeah, it's bigger than just one person.
Right. And it also shows how complicated the legal system can be. There aren't always easy answers.
Sometimes it's messy.
Exactly. And this case is going to keep going. In the courts, in the public eye, probably for a while. So as you follow along, think about what you're seeing and hearing.
Don't just believe everything you read.
Right. Think critically. Consider all the different sides.
But form your own opinion.
Exactly. An informed opinion based on all the information.
That's what this deep dive has been all about. Not just giving you the facts, but helping you make sense of them.
So you can have those important conversations.
So as this all keeps unfolding, remember, behind all the headlines, behind all the legal stuff, there are real people whose lives are being affected by this.
And these conversations, even if they're hard, they're important. They're how we make things better.
How we create a fairer system.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Sean Diddy Combs legal situation.
Thanks for being here with us.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a new topic, one that'll hopefully make you think and maybe learn something new. Until then, stay curious.
And keep those brains working.
See you next time.